Hi everybody, this is Randy with D&Z Customs, and today we are going to install our Centerforce Triad triple disc clutch into our 69 Camaro project. We've got our Lingenfelter eliminator motor in here. We've got our SpeedTech Extreme frame and torque arm suspension with JRI coilovers. Awesome forged line wheels, BF Goodrich rubber. And we're needing to make all this power this Lingenfelter motor makes, make it get through the transmission that we're going to be putting in our Tremec Magnum F series trans. So we got that Triad triple disc clutch. So let's start out and look at the first piece that we need to put on there. We already put on this plate that's part of our QuickTime bell housing. The other piece that we need to put on next would be the actual flywheel from Centerforce. Made in the USA, billet steel flywheel. This is an awesome piece. It's got the spacers on here that are needed to get everything lined up properly for this 8 3/4 triple disc clutch. So when you look at your crank, you've got, on this application, you got 6 bolt holes, and then there's a hole here that's actually an alignment hole for this. That's your lineup hole. So you want that hole lined up with that. So putting this up on here like so. And of course that's gonna fall. Not uncommon. And I usually like to just put one bolt up in here just to kind of help line things up a little bit. And of course, that's going to fall right in my way. So we'll do this one down here. So we'll get that put in there. Move this noisy piece up out of the way. All right, there we go. Now things can stay in place for us. And these bolts here, they've got a torque sequence that they give you a little piece along with your bolts here. These are ARP fasteners. And they're 19 millimeter 12-point socket. 25 foot-pounds first. Then you do a triangular pattern, bringing it down. Do 25 foot-pounds. Then you go to 60 foot-pounds. And then your final torque is somewhere between 80 to 82 foot-pounds. I like to put a little bit of red Loctite on the bolts. It's more just a thing for me. I feel better about the whole situation if it's done. Just a little drop will do ya. Take out one of the other bolts I put in here. Once we get all these done, we will do our torque sequence of drawing that in. These Triad triple disc clutches hold 1,100 foot-pounds of torque. That's some pretty serious clamping power. Now our motor is 761 horsepower and 622 foot-pounds of torque. Now you're saying to yourself, why do you need so much clutch? Well, what we end up doing with this car is we're going to be doing a bunch of road course stuff with Optimal Batteries, Ultimate Streetcar Series, doing SCCA stuff, Motor State Challenge, Midwest Muscle Car Challenge. So we're doing more of the extreme type of driving than what your average person is going to do with their car. And we'll be doing autocross stuff also, but the road course is really the part where you're putting the car through more abuse. So we choose to use this clutch just for the fact of everything that we're going to be putting it through. So I'm just trying to draw these down so I don't have as much. To torque down the initial first torquing. And I'm slowly taking it down first because I'm not all the way seated on the back of the crank with the flywheel. So I'm going to take it down first this way. And I'm doing it in a crisscross star pattern just to draw it in evenly. She's getting pulled in nicely there. And I think at this point here, I'm going to turn the torque wrench on. I'm going to make sure it's set at 25 foot-pounds, which is really probably hard to see this. But I'm going to start drawing this down. And my torque wrench will make the noise when it gets there, and it also vibrates. You don't have to have a fancy torque wrench, all you gotta do is have one that's accurate. Now we're down at the 25. Now we got to raise it up to 60. When we are at 60, we do the same thing, our star crisscross sequence. And then we go and raise it up to 80 to 82 foot-pounds. And again, you do your same sequence. And there you have it. That is all set and torqued. Now, make sure those bad boys stay on there, our spacers in the place that they belong. You also notice there's a red paint mark. I'll explain that a little bit later. That helps with balance, the way the flywheel and clutch is set up. Everything gets lined up with that same red paint mark in a sequence. On our application, we are going to be using the pilot bearing that goes into the center of the crank. Now, if you'd be doing an application like a C5, C6 Corvette, you'd be using one of these other ones. It varies. You got to look at the application to which your car or transmission setup needs it. Ours uses this with the Tremec Magnum F and even a regular Magnum trans. So we got our tool for putting in our pilot bearing. Get ourselves lined up in there. Make sure you're lined up straight and you're nice even taps. Don't try and kill it right away. And your tool goes up to the back of the crank, and that's where it stops. Now the pilot bearing is installed. Just bounce a little bit. We're going to take a little brake parts cleaner, spray it on the rag. Before we do any more assembly, we want to wipe this surface down because there's possible a little bit of residual oil from manufacturing, packaging. So we want to get that cleaned off. Lay onto the rag because we're going to have to do it on the floater plates also. So there's a sequence that this goes together. You got your triple disc set up here. You got a flywheel side. And you got your floater side. Now I'm going to take and wipe my floater down. Make sure that's clean of any oil and debris. You can see that there's a red mark on there to go along with that. So we need to make sure that's sequenced in the same manner so it shows up and is in the right spot. Flywheel side. So we can see this. This is actually better to do in an assembly. It makes it a little bit easier. But I'm just doing it a little bit for you guys to be able to see it this way. Get those all lined up. This has got a floater side. This goes out. Red mark also sequenced. Try and get that kind of lined up for us. It all clips together, sits in there nicely. Do yourself a favor. Start with your alignment tool. And then our final piece is our pressure plate. Also gets lined up on here with the red mark right there. So you get red mark, red mark, red mark, red mark. Everything is in a sequence together. And that's the way Centerforce had designed it to be. They have little washers, more ARP fasteners. And these will get torqued to 24 foot-pounds, evenly crisscrossed. One thing that's about this clutch is it's such a beautiful piece. It's almost a shame to hide it underneath the bell housing and between the trans and the engine, because it's just a really neat piece to look at. You want to hang it on the wall, but it does a lot better job actually being in the car. Everyone gets a washer and a ARP fastener. This should be a 10 millimeter 12-point socket for this. And you try to do yourself a favor and get that tool lined up. Kind of turn these in by hand a little bit to help hold things. Feel like maybe we're off just a little bit. It's not a easy thing to get on the first try to get this lined up just perfect. You'll save yourself a lot of headache though if you get it as close as you can before you go and try and put your transmission up in here. Otherwise you'll be fighting to get your transmission lined up. You can just drop it in the socket. All right, so we set our torque wrench up, 24 foot-pounds. And start working it down. Once again, you don't want to just go and kill the one bolt. You want to work it all the way around fairly evenly and draw it down. We're getting it pulled in all the way along here. All right, we're starting to get it to, there we go. And there's a lot more bolts here to try and remember where you're at, so it's not a science, but you want to try to evenly crisscross it. Nice star pattern if possible. Just like that. Go make sure I hit all of them. And there you have it. That is your Centerforce Triad clutch install. What a beautiful piece. Thank you for watching, and make sure you like our page. We've got other videos, and hopefully it'll be informative. Thank you.